This is a 2025 reading check-in. Okay, I did not read 28 books this year, but I did read 28 things, which included some really short poems and short stories. This is what I read. I read Herman Melville, The Encantantadas, which is a lovely story told in, I think 11 scripts or something about sea turtles. I read Edgar Allen Poe, Descent into Maelstrom. I read The Crucible by Arthur Miller. I read Snowbound, A Winter Idyl, and Cocktail Party by T.S. Eliot. By Anthony Trollope, I read London Tradesman. John Greenleaf Whittier, I read Frost Spirit and Snowbound, and A Christmas Carmen by Edgar Allen Poe. I also read Nigeria. By Oscar Wilde, I wrote, this is the funniest book that I read all year. It was called The Remarkable Rocket. And the worst book so far of 2025 was John Steinbeck, The Pearl. The most eye-opening, jaw-dropping book I read this year was Train to Pakistan by Kushwant Singh. Also, The Island of Dr. Moreau, H.G. Wells. I also read a short story by Ambrose Bierce. This was a collection of ghost stories. I read one of the ghost stories. It was called The Ways of a Ghost Present at a Hanging. I read a book in a series. I read part 3. It was called Deliverance, and it was about a boat wreck. That was by Wilkie Collins. I love Wilkie Collins. I also read The Dream Woman. I have that to be the best read. And another amazing read by Wilkie Collins is called A Terribly Strange Bed. I loved this year Stephen Crane's The Blue Hotel. Dan Brown's Deception Point with some life-shattering information. I got Troubles Don't Last, Shelley Pearsall. The City, which was sci-fi, When Dogs Rule the World. That's Clifford's simak. There's already a book report on here for Drum Taps for Walt Whitman, The Gamekeeper, Guy D. Maupassant. I also read The Judge's House by Bram Stoker. The Rope of Hair by that favorite French author, Guy D. Maupassant. And a very short poem called Won't You Celebrate With Me by Lucille Clifton. Oh, and Farewell to Manzanar. Okay, so these are book reports that I already wrote that I'm reading right from my website, Booktube, Pennsylvania, Amy Cush. The one I wrote about T.S. Eliot Cocktail Party. It says a guy's wife wants to leave him, for good. So she throws him a party and invites all these people to his house for this cocktail party. And then she leaves a note that she's leaving him. And then she leaves. And then he's stuck at this party with all the people. Doesn't know what to do. There was a booktube prompt out there to read 3 plays of Oscar Wilde, and I did do that. I read The Remarkable Rocket. Okay, that was the funniest play, funniest story about fireworks talking to each other. They kept calling the firecracker cracker. Bang bang yells the cracker. It was so funny. Okay, I also read A Florentine Tragedy. That's a play that only had 3 characters and 1 murder. It was a man who was a merchant, and his wife was there, and a rich prince named Guido who wanted to buy everything the merchant had, including his wife. And The Duchess of Padua, but I don't know if I've finished that one yet. The Ways of a Ghost Present at a Hanging. That's that short story that was 1853 Lebanon. An Iowa man, Daniel Baker, let a peddler into his house, and the peddler was never seen again. There was rumors that the old man Baker murdered the peddler, but nobody did anything because murderers were everywhere. 7 years later, a Baptist minister named Reverend Cummings was on his horse going past that Baker farm, which had a small bridge over a dry ravine. He saw a vision of a figure with a backpack on the bridge. The friendly minister yelled to the man and offered him a ride, but the guy didn't answer. The figure pointed down and then disappeared. This scared the horse that the minister was on, and the horse took off home, and the minister told his people, and the next day they all went back. They found nothing but horse footprints, no human prints. They did find Old Man Baker hanging from the bridge, and while taking that body down, they discovered a second body, this of the peddler, dead in the ground directly under where the hanging Old Man Baker was dangling. I read Edgar Allen Poe, The Gold Bug. It says, I did struggle with that book, hard time following the plot. This guy he finds a bug, and he went looking for a piece of paper or a parchment to wrap it up in. He wanted to sketch the bug because he was giving the bug to the guy at the fort. But then they found a cryptogram on the parchment paper, and they went on a treasure hunt. Okay, the train to Pakistan, I said about that, ultimate religious persecution. Last chapter of this book, they were pulling people's pants down to see, what they had under there, like religious persecution. It was a very disturbing book. Okay, a side note is I read it on an audiobook, and the very first chapter of that audiobook, like the guy had a really thick Indian accent, but the rest of the book got better. So if you think about listening to that, it does get better. We have The Oblong Box by Edgar Allen Poe. I said I would not recommend that book. It was stupid, about people on a boat going from Charleston, South Carolina to New York City in an oblong box. And there was an artist on the board with his family. The artist on board, I guess there was a dead body in the box, embalmed relative in the box. But everybody didn't know that they were traveling with the dead body. That was... Okay, Dan Brown, Deception Point, that contains seafloor microphones, Arctic oceans, alien life forms in a meteor, fossils in a glacier, big bugs, microbots, ultimate surveillance tools, and NASA's role on Earth, like not space. This talks about NASA being very active on Earth and in Hollywood. It says I don't recommend smoking weed with that book. More on that gold bug. Okay, I guess it was a beetle bug. The man goes to visit a friend, and the friend lives on the island. It was a very small, 3 mile long, 1/4 mile wide, no trees, nothing, just a creek separating it from the mainland of South Carolina. It's called Sullivan Island, where he finds his once wealthy friend, LeGrand, living in a hut. And, then they showed him this bug, and they lent it to Lieutenant from Fort Moultrie. The gold bug, the size of a hickory nut, it had spots. There's a cryptogram in that book. Okay, John Greenleaf Whittier, that was a very old American author. I read Snowbound, a Winter Idyl, IDYL. It was a... where that review is. Hold on. The Island of Dr. Moreau is about a laboratory on an island crossbreeding animals. Some dude has a servant that looks human, but he's got pointed furry ears. We got Farewell to Manzanar. That was rough. That was the sardine fisherman that got picked up on Pearl Harbor. Got picked up on the harbor after, Pearl Harbor. And Emily Dickinson, Hope. She says hope is a thing with feathers and it lives inside of you. I read The Last Australian Who Left Venice, Anthony Trollope, is a depiction of the hate between Italians and Germans, more specifically between the people of Venice, the Venetians, and the Austrian soldiers in town. It's a story with language barriers between the conquered and the conquerors. I read, by this John Greenleaf Whittier, I read a poem. He was a Quaker. It was called A Christmas Carmen. And I read The Blue Hotel. That was by Stephen Crane. About a palace hotel in Nebraska. Dazzling winter landscape near the railroad, where the owner of the hotel would go and hang out at the railroad station to sell hotel rooms during bad snowy weather. And that night he brought 3 men to the hotel and they spent the night. This was a Swede, I'm assuming a Swedish person, a cowboy, and a man from the East. And they're all snowed in playing cards in a blizzard. That's The Blue Hotel by Stephen Crane. Train to Pakistan, Kushwant Singh. It talks about the murder of a banker. In 1947, there was a village gangster and some other dude that wanted to stop the violence in the village because the police could not. Dream Woman by Wilkie Collins. That was about a 40-year-old man named Isaac who still lived with his mother. She was widowed, and he was known as Unlucky Isaac, being unlucky in love and also unlucky in careers. He did get a job as a hostler. Look that up. It's a stable worker with horses. And it was on his 40th birthday that he decided to take a different route home from work, but was unacquainted with the area. He felt he was about 15 miles away from his home, and it was raining, and it was his birthday, so he decided to get a room. And he awoke with an apparition of a blonde woman holding a knife. She pulled the knife out of her sleeve, and in stealth silence, no sound, and her moving across the floor, she started to stab the mattress. He's flopping around to avoid the knife, and the candle went out. It's now dark, and he starts yelling for the master of the house, who came running down with a candle in one hand and the gun in the other. And Isaac was yelling about the murderer in his room. He said he dodged the knife, but it went in the mattress several times. The master went in the room and said, "Buddy, the bed's fine. There's nobody in there. Get the fuck out of here. You must have been dreaming and woke me up and scared me and the missus in the house with a murderer." So he paid the bill and left. The rain stopped anyway, and he was just relieved after what he just went through in that room. And he made it home to his mother, and he told her all about it. And he said he was still shaken up and just not himself. His mom hugged him and started to write down all the details. It was about 2 a.m., and it was his birthday. And the knife she was holding had a buckhorn handle, and she locked the paper that she wrote in the desk, and Isaac just tried not to think about that again. And his life did get better after that event, and somebody died in a carriage accident, and he was bequeathed some money, enough for him and his mom to live nice for a few years. He even got his own place. Mom was older and sick, and one day she ran out of prescription medicine, so Isaac went to the pharmacy to fill it for her. As he was walking into the pharmacy, there was a woman walking out, and he inquired with the pharmacist about her and was told that she was looking for drugs for a bad tooth, but he couldn't help her. He filled up his mom's script, and he went to look for that woman, and he found her, and he asked her if she was okay. She said her name was Rebecca, and she looked thoroughbred, like she lived a good, comfortable life, but she's told him a sad story. She said, "The police know all about me because I tried to kill myself a few times." He said, "Don't kill yourself. I'm going to follow you around just to make sure you don't." She said, "Your kind words made me want to live. I'll be okay tonight. Check on me tomorrow." And she left. And he went home with his mother's prescription, and he found her reading that paper locked up in the desk. The next day, he checked on the lady, and she vanished. He said, "If I was 20, this would be fun. But I am 40 years old now, and I'm infatuated with her. I want to give her reasons to live." He offered to marry her. She helped him with a plan about what to tell his mother, and she concocted a story about being his buddy's sister rather than a suicidal nutjob known by the police. He was happy, but a little uneasy, so he announced the engagement. Mom was happy, but then saw the woman and she got anxiety. Rebecca got insulted and left, and his mom said, "She fits the description of that dream woman you had years ago." Isaac started chasing her. Rebecca came back, and 3 weeks later they were man and wife. Mom didn't want to see her. The daughter-in-law had it, and the daughter-in-law, and it had nothing to do with her whack past. It was just the description of the specter woman with the knife years ago that had her son shooken up. Isaac said, "My mom's old and nuts." His birthday was coming around again, and his new wife is now drinking heavily and hanging out with drunks. These domestic calamities of a drunk wife and a sick mother just had him in misery. This middle-aged man. Mom heard about the troubles, and she said, "I want you to be happy, son. Let's go talk to your wife." And it was 1 p.m. when they found Rebecca at home in the kitchen. It was still early in the day, and she only had a few drinks. The meeting went well. Rebecca served some bread with a knife that had a buckhorn handle. Mom was like, "Look, that's the knife from the dream from 8 years ago." And then Isaac started to get a little freaked out too, and the mom said, "Take me home." She pleaded with him not to go back. He was like, "I gotta go back. That's my house, my wife, and Rebecca's now sloshed." He wanted to go find the knife so he felt safe, but he couldn't find it. So he asked her for it, and she was like, "It's mine." He looked all over for it, still couldn't find it. So now he was too scared to go to sleep in the same room with her. The mom died. The last words were, "Don't go back, my son, don't go back." So he was even freaked out more. Funeral day, Rebecca got drunk before the funeral and was threatening to do dumb shit in the funeral procession, and he hit her. But he immediately repented and was scared, but he locked her in the bedroom until the funeral was over. When he got back, she said, "No man ever hit me twice. I'm out of here." She left, and he locked the door and slept with it locked for 6 days. Nothing. On the 7th day, an apparition girl appeared at his bedside. It was his wife. She had the knife up her sleeve, just like the apparition in the hotel. But this was his wife. She said, "I don't want to see you anymore." He left, saw the policeman, and asked for the date and time. The policeman said it was 2 a.m. and it was his birthday again. Now he was freaked out still. Did he just escape mortal peril? He had the knife with him now, but he wanted the police to find her and follow her because he was scared of her. He went back to his house, and there was nobody there. And he saw that there was a pick lock on the floor, and that's how she got in. But he did not know where she was, and that made him uneasy. He left his house and the entire town forever, and he told the neighbors to sell his stuff and give the money to the police to trace the woman down. The end.